Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurumedeva Sarvakarishu Sarvada. Om Ganganapate Namaha. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha. Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharane Trambake Devi Narayani Namostute. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Mahalakshmi Rupena Samstita. Namaste 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 Namo Namaha. Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharane Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to Nitya Satsang. Today is the 3rd of July 2025. I want to offer my prostrations to all the great sages and to Bhagavan residing in the Hriday Akash, in the heart of every single being. We are continuing to examine further, as we just started last 2 days ago, what is known as Prem-Lakshana Bhakti, or the Prema Bhakti, Prem-Lakshana Bhakti. It is the 10th Bhakti, or it can be considered to be the height of devotion. When devotion reaches a stage where love flows from the system, from the body, mind, senses, the entire Shakti that is inside us, it flows as Bhakti without any division, without any break of any kind. So that is called Prem-Lakshana Bhakti. And those who have reached such a stage, devotees who have reached such a stage, are able to live in this world. They are able to live in this world in a very awakened, enlightened way, without getting without getting overrun by Maya at all. And that is the beauty of it. Now, there was a question somebody had asked yesterday regarding the question of Maya and how, what exactly is Maya with regards to Bhakti, with regards to Bhagavan Krishna, Golok Dham. It's a very technical question. I mean, the answer can be very, very technical, but we want to keep it straightforward as much as possible. One way to understand this is that Bhagavan is one, that there is only one Supreme Tattva. That Supreme Tattva, Parabrahma, let's call it Bhagavan. When I use the word Bhagavan, we mean Bhagavan is equal to Parabrahman, is equal to Purushottama, is equal to Paratpar Narayan, all that. It means the same thing. So we'll use the word Bhagavan in that way. There's only one Tattva, ultimately. Now, that one being, that one tattva, which is Sat Chit Ananda, has infinite types of energies, potentialities, etc. Infinite number of energies that are there. So, this outer energy, Bahir Shakti, in terms of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, this material energy, this Bahir Shakti, this is a power of Paramatma. And this Tatastha Shakti, which is the Jivatma, marginal dwelling energy, the Jivatma or the finite self, is another kind of Shakti also. You can think of it that way. Now, what does that mean? When we ask ourselves, who are we? We are Jivatma. So Jivatma, even as per Ramanujacharya and Bhagavan Swaminarayan, they have all said that the Jivatma is not really, it's not the Paramatma that becomes the Jivatma, as many people think it is. So the Atma, so Paramatma, that is an Advaitic concept in Advait Vedanta. And that is correct in terms of the substance, the tattva. Like a drop of water and the ocean are the same substance. But the drop of water is still not exactly the same as the ocean in terms of its, its quantity, let's say, its essential vastness. Drop of water is just a drop of water, that's all. but the substance is the same. So when we try to understand what is Maya, Maya or Mahamaya is that extraordinary power. It's a certain kind of energy or power within which infinite number of Jivatma are dormantly existing with their causal bodies. I know that's difficult to understand. What can that mean? Think of it this way, that Bhagavan is eternal, uncreated. Nobody created God. Meaning that Paramatma is just existing, eternally existing. There's no creation or destruction of that Tattva. Similarly, the Atma Tattva, what is called Jivatma, which is engulfed by Maya, is uncreated. It is not created by Paramatma. It is existing from beginningless time along with Paramatma, but under the influence of Maya. This is the basic point to understand. So there is Parabrahma or Bhagavan. There is the Shakti of Parabrahman, that is Mahamaya, and there's infinite number of galaxies and universes that are underneath Mahamaya, and inside Mahamaya, which is infinite also, there is infinite energy, and there are infinite number of Jivatma, Ananta Koti Jivatma. So for example, if you just look at the world we're living in, you go outside for a walk, you see bugs and trees and plants and all kinds of beings, frogs and insects and endless number of different species. Each one has a different body. Each Jivatma has a different body. We can see this. But the Tattva, the Atma Tattva is Sat Chit Ananda. It is always Sat Chit Ananda. It is underneath Mahamaya. Now someone will ask a question, why is this like this? Why is there even Mahamaya? All the Acharyas would say this is a wrong question, including Shankaracharya ji, Ramanuj, everybody. Why is it a wrong question? Because the question is coming from our buddhi. And our buddhi is underneath Maya. Once we awaken out of Maya, the question disappears. It's like saying, why is there darkness at night time? If somebody wakes up at 2 a.m., Sachin wakes up at 2 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., say, why is there darkness? Well, is there such a thing as darkness? Maybe, but not really. I mean, what is that darkness? There's nothing there. It's the absence of light. So if I ask the question, why is there darkness? I mean, I cannot analyze even darkness. How can I analyze that? There's nothing there to analyze. So the question disappears once the sun comes up. And if we are close to the sun or within the sun, there is no concept of darkness. So Mahamaya and the existence of the universes and everything else that comes out of Mahamaya, it all goes out of one's purview the moment we enter into the Swarup of Paramatma. Then there's no more Mahamaya at all. I mean, there is, in one sense, it still exists, but not for the bhakta or the devotee. It's no longer there. It's there, but it's not there. You see, so this is the interesting part. When we are close to the Surya Narayan, like we're really close to this 100 miles away, or we're inside the sun, or there's no concept of day or night. The concept is not there. The concept of day and night is there in the distance. The further away we go from the sun, there is day and night on the different planets. Similarly, the more away we are from Paramatma, to that extent Mahamaya is present and the influence of the three gunas of Maya, then that comes about. The closer and closer we get to Radhika ji, to Bhakti, to Bhagwan Krishna, to that extent Mahamaya begins to, it doesn't hold any more power over us. And the whole different type of life begins. In that different type of life, there are experiences that are beyond the three gunas of Maya. Even though we're living here, on this planet with people, with this body. But there is a transcendence of the limitations of the Sattva Gun, Rajogun, Tamogun, the waking, dream, deep sleep states, and the physical, subtle, causal. 3, 3, 3 makes total of 9. You begin to go beyond all of this. Even though it is there, even though the body remains, the evolution, the 10th Bhakti, the Prem-Lakshana Bhakti, allows us to go beyond Sattva Gun by the grace of God, because Bhagavan is Gunatit, beyond the 3 gunas. This word Gunatit means beyond the 3 gunas of Maya. Right? So the Gita talks about this, so many scriptures. In Sanskrit, Atit means beyond. Dehatit, Gunatit, like this. Atit means beyond, transcendent to. So we are able, by the entrance into Prema Bhakti, when we are deeply connected with Bhagavan, without distraction, without any kind of a diversion, without any obstruction, then there is that opening into Gunatit Avastha. The opening happens and one begins to see the divine tattvas, Divya Tattva. So the Jagrat Avastha, Swapna Avastha, Shushupti Avastha, they remain in some sense, but one is not rolling around in them in a bound manner. That is the difference. That the Avastha remains, but the Avastha is not binding the individual. This is called Upsham, and I think this is a Gujarati word. I don't know if it is in Hindi language or not. I don't even think it's a Sanskrit word actually. I think it's a Gujarati word only. But I'll double check it and see. It's called Upsham. Upsham. Upsham means there is freedom from every form of entanglement in the Jagrat Avastha and in the Swapna Avastha. Though the experiences continue, we still see the stars and the moon and the planets and trees and whatever we're seeing outside, we still see it. We still see people and places, but the activity that is performed, it is, in Gujarati we say nirbandha kriya. There is no bondage in the action at all. In the action and the interaction, it is nirbandha. There's no binding in the activity. The one has been freed from the binding phenomena of Maya. When that happens, when that actually begins to happen, this is where we begin to experience the metaphysical architecture that we were talking about yesterday. This metaphysical architecture of the abode of God, the Bhagavan ka dham, that begins to reveal itself. So the substratum, that is the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha Dham, Goloka Dham, different names are there. Those are abodes of God. It begins to reveal itself. You see, where does it reveal itself? So in Sarangpur number 10, Vachanamrut, Shriji Maharaj says, कि अंतर्दृष्टि थी भगवान ने भगवान नु धाम अणुमात्रपण छेटू नथी in Gujarati. It means from antardrishti, from inner vision, when we are absorbed in parabhakti towards Bhagavan, these abodes of Paramatma that seem to be so beyond and so far away, they are actually right here within us. From inner perspective. They are not externally, you'll not reach them externally by a rocket ship. Rocket ship or no spaceship can ever go into those lokas because of the barrier of the Bhautik Akash. It's beyond Akasha, this Akash. It is another kind of Akash called Chidakash. And that is only perceptible in Parabhakti, in Samadhi or Prema Samadhi. So even though one is in Jagrata Avastha, the Satchit Ananda, that is the Atma Tattva, that reveals itself. That is who you are. And also the abode of Bhagavan. Abode meaning Dham. So the Sandhini Shakti is the substratum that configures and sustains the spiritual world, its abodes, and the bodies of the Mukta. So now, this is what we were talking about yesterday. that by this Sandhini Shakti, this is how Bhagwan Krishna, the Parabrahma Tattva, creates the Dham, Golok Dham. There's a great saint called Gopalanand Swami. गोपाल स्वामी महाराज के बहुत बड़े संत थे, भगवान स्वामी नारायण जिसको कहते हैं, उनके एक बहुत बड़े संत थे, अष्टांग योग उनको सिद्ध था. And he has talked about this in his talks. There's a Gujarati scripture called Gopalanand Swamini Vato. There are 3 prakarans, 1, 2, 3. And within that, he describes this expansion of the Golok Dham, that Bhagwan Krishna opens this Golok Dham through this extraordinary internal potency, and the whole abode is created. The forms of the muktas are created. And those who reach the Goloka Dham, they don't come back into the sansar. So they don't come back, they remain eternally with Bhagwan Krishna in the Dham. And then Bhagwan Krishna can absorb the entire Goloka and everything in it back into himself. That is something, we cannot imagine all that. So there is Sankoch Vikas Avastha of the Golok, but it doesn't mean that the abode is destroyed. It is not destroyed, it is always existing, it is a Nitya Dham. In Vedaras, Bhagwan Swaminarayan explains this also, that Vaikuntha, Kailas and Golok are Nitya. He says in Gujarati, उन्होंने ऐसा लिखा है, आत्मानी पेठे नित्य छे. Atma is Nitya. Atma Tattva is eternally existing, always. It never can be destroyed by anybody, by anything. There is no destruction, there is no creation. Similarly, just like the Atma that is never created, never destroyed, Vaikuntha Dham, Kailasa Dham and Goloka Dham are Nitya. Now, people might be asking, what about Akshar Dham? What is Akshar Dham actually? Let's save that discussion for another time. It's even a more advanced subject than what we're talking about right now, which itself is super advanced. But let me just make one point about it, that the word Goloka is not mentioned in the Gita. Tad dhama paramam mama. Akshara is described as the dham in the Bhagavad Gita. Again, those are more esoteric subjects. We will get to that later on. There is also a whole section of sannyasis and sadhus who believe that the Akshar Dham is where Krishna and Radha, where they stay. The place at the center of Golok where they exist, that is Akshar Dham. Some people believe that way. Golokana Madhya Akshar Dham. This is all discussion more in the Swaminarayan tradition. But we'll save that for the Swaminarayan spirituality discussions in the other podcasts, because that'll take us in a totally, we don't have time to get into that. But what we can do is to try to understand what is Goloka, what is Sandhini Shakti, and the fact that Bhagwan Krishna creates this abode. Now, what about the material universes? The material universes are the inferior power of Bhagwan Krishna. It is and I'm talking about this mostly based on the Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara. So the inferior Shakti or the outer Shakti is Bahir Shakti. The material power, that is also only power of Bhagwan Krishna, but it is outer, it is material. The Antah Shakti, that is a spiritual energy. Tatastha Shakti, that is a Jivatma. So the Jivatma needs to connect with Paramatma through intense bhakti. Now, having said all of this, let's go a little bit further. Alright, let's see if we can break this down a bit further. So, Radhika ji as the apex of Haladini Shakti. So, what is this Haladini Shakti? Haladini Shakti is where there is the Mahabhav. So Haladini Shakti is ecstatic delight. You see this third block here? This is Ananda. So Sat, Chit, Ananda. When we say Ananda, that we are Ananda, our original form is Ananda, but that Ananda in the 10th Bhakti, with ecstatic delight, even while living, while embodied, we begin to experience This is called rasa. And in fact, it is called mahabhava. So affective rasa spectrum, meaning what? Affective meaning our emotions. Our emotions reach mahabhav, a state unique to Radhika ji. So she grants mahabhav. Now one has to be very careful in this. As one approaches mahabhav, if one even gets into mahabhav, one has to be very, very pure, nirvasnik, without any kind of other vasanas. Otherwise, one that activated emotion, if you don't have proper vairagya and jnana and other qualities, dharma, jnana, vairagya, etc., don't have enough of that, as the emotions activate towards Paramatma and they settle back down, they can flip into bhog, into Vishaya bhog. They flip back and forth. That happens a lot in bhakti. One has to be very careful to protect bhakti and let it develop. So one of the solutions to this problem is to have what is called Brahma Swarupini Bhakti. Okay, that is the connection between the Vedantic approach that I am Brahman and Bhakta of Paramatma. So Advait Vedanta and these Vaishnava ideas of pure bhakti, they are connected together by Shriji Maharaj. Swaminarayan Bhagwan, उन्होंने इसका connection कर दिया, and that protects bhakti completely. So now let's go a little bit further. Because these currents are ontologically indivisible, and they interpenetrate rather than laminate, Haladini Shakti cannot be savored without the substantive support of Sannidhi or without the epistemic luminosity of Samvit. All that simply means is these three are together: Sandhini, Samvit, and Haladini. Samvit means consciousness, awareness. That Bhagwan Krishna makes his Leela, his Swarup available to the devotees. That is called Samvit in terms of bhakti. So discloses this Samvit Shakti is a disclosure of Bhagwan Krishna's names, forms, Leela to the devotees, making knowing coexistence with loving. So you're coexisting with Bhagwan. And those 5 forms of mukti that are talked about in Srimad Bhagavatam are also available to the bhakta. And the bhakta doesn't ask for them, but Bhagwan Krishna or Radhika ji, both of them, they would grant the bhakta these 5 forms of mukti. Sarupya, Sayujya, Salokya, Samipya, and there's one more. There's 5 of them. And that is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.29.12. And we'll be looking at that also later on. Right? So all of the Sandhini is the actual substratum. It's the eternal substratum of the abode of God. Samvit is the revelation. It is the communion with God through names and leelas, etc. Then there's Haladini. Haladini Shakti is specifically, it's unique to Sri Radhika ji. And she can give that to the qualified devotee to reach that extraordinary, it's a profound state of devotion. It is Mahabhav. So it's not just Bhav, it is Mahabhav. That is unbounded Ananda. So even in this body, one gets that, glimpses of that. It is beyond the 3 gunas of Maya. And then one can, if it is the will of God, Bhagwan Swayam comes to us, reveals all of the abodes in Samadhi. So that is in Garada Pratham 5 Vachanamrut. That description is there also. Right? So I'm going to go through just another paragraph here. These are very big ideas, but nonetheless, since we're talking about Prem-Lakshana Bhakti, then we need to talk about it properly and correctly. So, Radha as the apex of Haladini. Within the tripartite lattice, Haladini Shakti becomes divisive for soteriology. This word here, that means doctrine of salvation. It's a technical word in philosophy of religion. Okay, so this word here, soteriology, Soteriology, if I'm saying it right, it's a doctrine of salvation. How does mukti happen? It's a question like Hindi we say, mukti kaise hoti hai? Mukti kevi rite thai? So that is called, the doctrine of salvation is soteriology. So there is this is called the tripartite lattice, this right here. Sannidhi, Sambit and Haladini. It's like a lattice. It's a 3 parts to this. Right. So it is the affective vector. What does that mean? What does this word mean? Affective vector. So we have to be careful in understanding this language because it's very technical. Affective vector means that our emotions are moving in a specific direction towards Paramatma, without any deviation. That is called vector. So let's talk about that for a moment. What that means? It's like an airline pilot, who's got into a cruising altitude and now has set that destination. Now the plane is not making any turns. It's just heading towards the landing, towards the destination. That's a vector. They set, it's on autopilot. You can unfasten the seat belts, and the service begins inside the plane, the drink service and meals and all that. And you're cruising above the clouds at 40,000 feet or 45,000 feet. So that is a vector, right? So similarly, a bhakta, after going through 9 forms of devotion and continuing 9 forms of devotion as sadhana, reaches Prem-Lakshana Bhakti. When Prem-Lakshana Bhakti begins to open, the affective meaning our totality of emotion, the completeness of our emotion is all together and is in a vector. Vector meaning that it is completely linked with Bhagavan. There is no break in that. Just like an airline pilot sets the vector, the direction, the destination, and then does not deviate. Yeah, maybe the plane makes some turns here and there, but that destination point is not different. If they change the destination point, then you cannot land at the right airport. Similarly, if a bhakta, let's say Sachin here, changes the destination point, that my destination is something other than Paramatma, then I will not reach Paramatma, I will reach somewhere in Maya. It's very simple. There are 2 vectors. One is within the realm of Maya, and one is outside the realm of Maya. It's fantastic. I wish we had like 10-15 hours to talk about this. It's so beautiful. This language is also fantastic. It is very beautifully put here. So it's a tripartite lattice that these 3, Sandhini, Sambit, Haladini, they are all together. When a bhakta wants mukti, but mukti meaning seva muktischa gamyatam, wants to be in communion with Bhagavan Krishna, so it is the affective vector that's set inside that translates metaphysical reality into lived aesthetic intensity. Most tremendous sentence. Kya amazing sentence hai ye. Let's see if we can underline that. See if we can break this up. This sentence I've highlighted, you could do a whole PhD on this. Somebody in religious studies could spend 10-15 years trying to unlock the truth of this. Let's see if we can do it in a few minutes here. When our emotions are reaching महाभाव, भाव में से महाभाव की स्थिति में आ सकते हैं. By the way, in that state, Purna sadhuta, Purna saintliness, Purna, whole chapter 12 of the Gita is in this. In fact, in this sentence about aesthetic intensity, when we are in that state, if that opens up Mahabhav, the entire 700 verses of the Gita live in their intensity from inside out. They live within the bhakta. They're already there. The whole truth of the Gita is there. Just imagine this. To reach Mahabhava, to reach by grace of Radhika ji, Mahabhava Swarupini, because that's who she is. The entire Gita is living inside the individual. Otherwise, this state cannot be reached. That is why in the Vaishnava Parampara, the study of the Gita is absolutely foundational. Then comes Bhagavatam, and then in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, there is the Chaitanya Charitamrut. That is the even further, that goes further. There's specialized devotional scriptures like Bhakti Rasamrut Sindhu. Why? What are they all talking about? They're talking about this metaphysical vector, this affective vector where metaphysical reality is lived. Meaning what? This metaphysical reality, Sannidhi, Samvit and Haladini, they are lived actually as aesthetic intensity. Aesthetic intensity means extraordinary beauty. Saundarya, 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 Saundarya. Maha Saundarya. Mahabhava. Radhika ji is Mahabhava Swarupini because her existential contours do not merely contain bliss, they generate and dynamize it for Krishna himself. My God. Absolutely tremendous. This is I don't even know where to begin to explain this. My goodness. ये तो भगवान की दया से ऐसे वाक्य हम देख भी सकते हैं. That this kind of language is available for us to even think about. बहुत कृपा होनी चाहिए, otherwise ये ऐसा sentence मिलेगा भी नहीं. Think about this. That Shri Radhika ji is Mahabhava Swarupini. She's the personification of supreme ecstatic love. Personification. So when we do the darshan, जब हम राधिका जी की जो मूर्ति का दर्शन करते हैं, see if we can keep some of these sentences in mind. I will have a publication available for all this in the future sometime. But even to take literally a paragraph like this on a sheet of paper and go in front of the murti of Radhika ji and to read this and to absorb it, is sthiti, when we recognize Radhika ji as this, to meditate on this and then to do darshan, something extraordinary happens there. This is how to do darshan of the murti of Radhika ji. Radha Krishna ki murti, all Hindu temples have murti of Radha and Krishna. But who is Radhika ji? Unka darshan kaise karna? Wo kaun hai actually? So she is the personification of ecstatic love. Now that's another question. What is ecstatic love? That is Mahabhav. So what is ecstasy? Now when you say the word ecstasy, is not the drug ecstasy. You don't need that drug ecstasy. This is beyond all of that. It is where emotions, and I will stop with this here because if I keep talking about this, we will not be able to stop this at all. I mean, it is so extraordinary. I don't even know where to stop it. I cannot stop it actually, but I have to put a break somewhere. What is ecstasy? What is that? It is where our emotions go beyond the dvanda. The dualities of emotions are shattered. These are very big states, but highly developed. The duality, polarity of emotions are gone. And it's not the emotions are not gone. The emotions have touched, how can we say it? By touching the form of God, they are transmuted. The usual human emotional system has taken a quantum jump, a leap into divya bhava, into emotion that is divine emotion. That divine emotion is so, how can we say it? That is anandam. but it is Anandam in terms of the rasa towards Paramatma. It is not simply the Anandam of the Atma. Even again, super advanced subject. Oh, let's stop here, because otherwise there will be no end to it. Let's stop here for now, and then we will continue on this tomorrow. Om Shri Radha Krishna Namo Namaha. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Gurudeva Maheshwara Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanitrambake Devi Narayani Namosute Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Mahalakshmi Rupena Samsthita Namaste 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 Namo Namaha. Om Trambakam Yajame Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshya Mamritat. Om Dhyanamulam Gurur Murti Mantramulam Gurur Vakyam Pujamulam Gurur Padam Mokshamulam Gurur Kripa Tameva Mata Chapita Tameva Bandhusha Sakha Tameva Vidya Dravinam Tameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Dharma ki jai ho, adharma ka nash ho, praniyon mein sadbhavna vishwa ka परम कल्याण हो. नमः पार्वती पते हर हर महादेव हर. ओम श्री राधा कृष्णार्पणमस्तु. ओम श्री दुर्गार्पणमस्तु. ओम ह्रीं स्वाहा.